September meeting of the Ocean County Tea Party. We're going to get things started with the salute to the flag. Please rise. Join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to turn this over to our Vice President John now for a brief prayer.
It is right to give God thanks and praise. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day. And thank you for this glorious night. It's glorious because you have brought all these people here to share, to learn, and to be with one another. And while we do that, we keep God Almighty in mind. And we pray that everything we say and do is in His will and in His Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Marilyn, do you have the treasurer's report? The current balance?
Hey, how you doing? No, if you don't want to sit down anymore, it gets tougher and tougher. Yeah. How you doing, man? Standing up is a rough effort.
On the last, from the end of the last meeting, we had a balance of $360.86. We had $79 in collections, okay, and that meeting night, and also a $20 donation that was thrown out on the ground.
Hey,
Where we do our,
Just hold
so
that.
anyway,
Okay.
we now have $459.86.
Great.
And we paid the Hardeeville insurance,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. His name is Frederick Laverne. I consider him a corruption buster, and he also happens to be a candidate for Congress. Please welcome Fred, and please hold all questions until the end of his presentation.
I'm going to ask you to bear with me a little bit. It looks like it's a good enough room that we can probably reach you without the microphones, but when you've got to ask a question, you need to hear you. Can you hear me okay back there with
No
the
problem.
We're golden.
Okay.
I inherited my father's Stentorian voice. I'm not a member of the Tea Party, but I'm a fiscal conservative social moderate. So the things that you believe in generally are in alignment with what I believe. There's probably some small differences, but the truth is I think we can all say that the present system is broken, and we're not going to be able to fix it from within. And so that's what we're trying to do. We come into the different communities, and what we've been doing is looking at the different projects and things that have been done by the municipal council, by the school boards, and if there's something that's been done incorrectly, we pursue it. Those that are doing a good job, we laud them, we go ahead and we tell the folks that they're worthy to vote for. One of our fellows came up with the Good House Cleaning Seal of Approval. And that's been kind of a fun gag, because if you live here in Ocean County, I don't have to drop any names for you to know exactly who we've been targeting in our efforts in fighting the corruption that you're dealing with. It's interesting too, and quick, before I get started, you have an issue going on right now, which will be brought up later on, about your First Amendment rights, your rights to distribute flyers, campaign information, and brochures. Eric will be talking about it, I believe, later at the end of the meeting. And I can tell you that we support 100% what you're going to be doing, and we will be vigorously and publicly challenging that decision by your town council. So now we're here to talk about bonding, and we're here to talk about your taxes. Our ancestors shed their blood fighting against taxation without representation. And every time you pay your tax bill, whether you pay quarterly or in your mortgage payment or annually, there's a fraction of that bill that's paid out in bond fees to bond attorneys here in New Jersey by statute. The example we give so often is Lacey Township. Lacey Township bonded $19.8 million for their solar installation on their schools back in 2008. Their bill back in August was around $30,000 for their electricity. We'll be examining that issue very deeply. We already are. But that $19.8 million was roughly 10 times the actual cost of what should have been to have that work done. And roughly 10% of that went in bond fee directly to their bond counsel. Never mind the attorney fees, which are, quote, fair and reasonable. Well, I don't know if I could consider multi-million-dollar attorney fees on what should have been around a $900,000 project fair and reasonable. I doubt you would either. You're dealing with that right now. You're building a new community center. Happened back, I guess, in March, they passed the bond. Okay. And I believe your bond counsel is it Scotland McMenamin is your bond counsel for that project, or is that the school counsel? We have a flyer up here, which I'm going to ask Don to just hand to you guys out. It goes over some of the expenses as an example here in the state, bond fees. And I'm going to give him a second to do that. But basically, there's a very limited number of firms that could be a bond counsel in this state. And those firms are among the largest campaign donors to your assembly and senators. I wonder why that might be. I think you could probably figure it out. It's their best and biggest cash cow for the individual party organizations, because they get these donations right back and you're paying for them. Your tax bills could genuinely be nearly 10% cheaper based on what you could cut in the school tax and in the municipal property tax by removing the bond fees from the equation by creating a state bonding authority and running it through the Attorney General's office. The cost and the fees only on a $20 million project in one town of Lacey. Now, I have 17 towns in Ocean County in my district and 36 in Burlington. One town, one project would have easily covered a statewide bonding authority expense. And we're sitting here and cutting checks to, well, Wolf and Sampson. Anybody know what happened recently with Mr. Sampson in the Delaware, or the New York Port Authority? Wolf and Sampson was the big winner this year. The first 6 months, they bonded $2.24 billion. $2.24 billion. What was their fee out of the taxpayers? Between 5 and 10% of that. There were 4 bonds and there were different structures. But essentially $250 million in fees. They didn't do the work. They didn't even do the legal heavy lifting. They generated the loan package. So essentially for hitting print on a printer and printing out about 300 pages of boilerplate where lawyers translate English into English, they're cutting a 10% check to these guys. Is it big? When your town buys a fire truck, if they have a fire district, if you're on a 10% bond contract, how much does it take to raise the money to buy a $500,000 fire truck? You got to raise an extra 50 to pay the bond counsel. An extra 50 grand to pay the bond counsel. Why is this the dirty little secret in this whole state? Because both sides are in on it. They get paid this way. Your senator in this district works for one of the bond firms. Your Republican Party boss and the Democrat Party boss own or are partners in or have a brother that's a partner in bond firms. They don't do any real work. They're parasites. I'm sorry, there's no nicer way to put this. You're paying 10% out of your school budget. It's hard enough to get good books for the kids and take care of materials. You're already fighting now. Everything that, and a lot of people sometimes will come out against the teachers and say they're paid too much. I got to tell you, I taught no teachers paid too much unless they're not doing their job. And I know very few that don't do their job. If you have a few, there needs to be a way to remove them. I'm going to tell you this. Their contributions to the state pension system, they're gone. Okay? We're going to have to bond to put that money back. Where did the money go? It was invested in the Rebel. It's been spilled into the Port Authority, where the bond attorneys got paid. Now they're going to charge you to pay the bills for the money they stole. If this doesn't make you angry, if this doesn't make you upset enough to rise up, I mean, I don't want to sound like a counter-revolutionary or a revolutionary, but when you look at the numbers on this, I'm honestly surprised when I found this out, how we've gotten this far along. Somebody hasn't gone and taken the musket down from the mantelpiece and gone out and hung these bastards. 160 years ago, pardon my language, 160 years ago, we had a solution for this. It involved 2 bags of chicken feathers, a barrel of tar, and a fence rail. I'm glad everybody appreciated that. Trying to lighten the mood. This really upsets me that this is what's been going on, because we go to the campaign contributions, and you can see that every damn one of them is in on it. Every damn one of us had donations from the bond firms. Either they get it directly, or they get it through the party. Now comes the fun part. There's a chart up here I'd like you to see when we take a break. That's a chart that tells what the limitations are for different political organizations and what they can donate. And would you be surprised to know that there are party organizations that have no limits on their donations? So if they receive donations as bond attorneys, bond councils. I mean, if they receive it from bond councils, and then they redistribute those funds, they're not limited in any way. This chart, the most dangerous part of this legislation, is right here where it says no limits, no limits, no limits. People are worried about Citizens United. Citizens United is given corporate speech the same protection as you and I have as citizens. Is anybody here pro Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission? Is anybody here pro the FEC, the Superior Court or Supreme Court decision, Citizens United? It gives corporate personally. You're pro that?
Only for one reason, it balances the strength of the unions.
Oh, I can see that. All right, I'll give you that. And you know what? The Supreme Court held that you're correct because it's technically protected First Amendment speech. Now, our organization has a way to beat that legally and using the Constitution. There's been too many people that have been out there proposing a change to the Constitution, an amendment to limit that speech. The problem is, once you allow that, you're diminishing your rights in the First Amendment. So all these guys out there, send me money, we're going to stop Citizens United. What if I told you they could stop Citizens United tomorrow on the floor of the House and the floor of the Senate? That's not made up. That's a fact. If I tell you anything, I will then show you and prove it to you. There's never going to be something I tell you that I can't back up. If I don't know it, I'll look it up. I don't make it up. We came out 2 years ago and delivered to all 435 city congressmen and all 100 city senators something called the Change the Rules Pledge. The Change the Rules Pledge uses the fact that on the floor of the House and on the floor of the United States Senate, the Supreme Court has zero jurisdiction for what's spoken or done on those two floors. Zero. It's called non-justiciable. Thanks to separation of powers, they can do nothing if the House sets a restriction on speech in their own chambers. Just like you can do what you want in your house, they can do what they want in our house. We proposed to change the rules of the House and the rules of the Senate where you couldn't serve in a voting capacity on a committee that would benefit financially a campaign donor. In other words, if you take money from Monsanto, you shouldn't have a right to vote in committee on a voting capacity on an ad bill. That would seem like a conflict to you, doesn't it? It certainly does to me. And I know Lockheed's right in our backyard, so I hate to use them as the example, but I don't think anybody that's working in a district where Lockheed Martin's donating to your party, should you be on the defense appropriation bills in committee deciding how that money's going to get apportioned out? Probably not. Well, if they chose to do this, they'd have to choose to do this as a change to their rules. Then you take that soft political money coming from these different organizations and you've neutered it. Because what company is going to give money to a congressman that can't go do the dirty deals in the committee? They have no reason to give you the money anymore. They'll find other ways. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be some way for them to cheat. But you can head off that with the Change the Rules Pledge. Back to bonding. This form that's here, everybody has one to take a look at? Okay. You're going to recognize a lot of the names on this little article here. Okay. For example, Dilworth Paxton represents your school board. Gee, they weren't a big winner this year. They only bonded for $33.6 million. So shucks. They only made $3 million so far this year in bond fees. Tough work if you can get it. Roughly a third of a ream of paper to print a bond out. By the way, if you're an attorney and you want to learn what's necessary to do that work, you can take the class at Thomas Edison University. It's $199. So this isn't that special a deal. We could run this for the Attorney General's office and not be pointing out, all you have to do, let's even make it 5%, just to make it, let's assume that some of these aren't really 10, some of them are more. Look down that column at some of the numbers on these. You know, again, Wolf and Sampson's the big winner. Their first half of the year, $2.24 billion. They collected a commission on it. $2.24 billion. Christie's buddy. Okay, there's a shocker. And it's their first time to the big dance in first place. And I wonder why that is. Anybody have any questions so far? Yes? Oh, okay. What you can do about this is compel, either at the polls or by cajoling them into doing it, your Assembly and Senate to propose a bond board run by the state and eliminate this process entirely. Yes, sir?
Does each and every one of these bonds need to be gotten through an attorney?
At the moment, it's a statute,
It's the only way that you get a bond through, no matter, regardless of what the bond is.
but the beauty of that is it is a statute and not a contract. And as we like to say in our organization, what's right doesn't change, but who's in charge can be. If they won't change the statute, you change who's in charge. You have the right to do that November 4th, you have the right to do it next year in the Assembly and the Senate. Okay? These guys should be aware of this. For the federal candidates, I wouldn't vote for a federal candidate that wouldn't sign the Change the Rules pledge, and you shouldn't either. That doesn't mean that these other guys won't. It's been offered to them, we haven't heard back from anybody. The only guy that ever answered us back on this in the first year we did it 2 years ago, Angus King of Maine. You know what? He's an independent. Not surprised there. And he's doing a hell of a job. I'm surprised we didn't hear from Bernie Sanders, but I don't know whether it ever got past his gatekeepers. They probably didn't. We actually went to the individual offices in Washington, when I was a candidate last time. I ran 2 years ago, but we only ran that time to find out how they cheat. We didn't spend any money. We looked to see exactly how things work, and this time we're for real. I'm not here to be a candidate tonight. I'm here to talk to you about the bond issue and what you can do with your Assembly and Senate candidates in the coming year to fix this, and what you should be demanding of your town council and your school board that they fight for as well. A further cost-cutting measure that you can do with your school board and your municipal government is all of you also generally have council that's been assigned by contract, and you know they're all favors for our buddy up there. And, yeah, I'll say the name. He's a public figure. They all work for George Gilmore.
Oh, please.
Okay. Well, if you get on the other side of the district where I live, it's either George Gilmore over here or George Norcross over there. Two heads on a two-headed coin that's made up of. You know, hey, look, this is the reality we're living with. It's not the Democrat voters that are your problem. It's not the Republican voters that are your problem. It's not even all of the leadership. It's the corrupt leadership, and you need to remove them. And these, neither Norcross nor Gilmore have stood for election for anything. Who made them king? Well, you know who made them king? The people you said yes to at the polls. You need to be more educated and understand that the fix is in. The town up there called Brick Township got rid of a particular law firm. A certain senator works for that law firm. Now they're trying to get their hooks in down here. They'd very much like to be your council. Why? Because it's lucrative. With Lacey Township, they tried to do a recall, and they're going to go forward with that. They were going to do a recall on 3 school board members now. It was 2, now it's going to be 3. And that,
So who's the senator?
your senator.
Which is?
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. He works for Dasty. He's on their master. Yeah. Like I said, I'm dealing with folks that they don't have a learning curve on this. You guys already know these things. That's really more with the camera. Yes, sir.
So it's at all levels, but if I'm gonna go to the school board, then the question is to ask the school board members, you have a council to be bonded, and you have a council, right? An attorney that's a council, right?
Yes.
So my question to anybody on the school board should be, who works for the council, who is he, and can the school board shop around and perhaps save money by getting a different...
You can't, because it's just, what they're paid is a statute. They've rigged the game. Their payout's always the same.
So it's 10% no matter what?
Well, again, it's by contract, but generally the standard is 10%. On some larger bonds, it's negotiated to 5 because they don't want them that much under scrutiny. On some smaller bonds, I've seen numbers into the teens.
So the state needs to change the statute.
Correct. You're not going to change this unless the Assembly and the Senate change the law and the
No
governor
matter what
signs
the municipality does.
No matter what.
You can't change that
Right,
around.
but here's something your municipality can change that will give you immediate relief. Every one of us, leading up to that, Lacey was about to have a recall of their school board members. The petitions have not been taken out for signature yet. The petitions for this recall have not even technically been submitted to the county clerk for approval before the signatures are gathered. We're into what? Well into 6 figures in attorney fees from the school board council, which coincidentally there is also a bond council attorney. Not theirs, but for that particular issue. They're already into 6 figures in fees preemptively on what they might have to do to fight a valid recall action that they don't have any responsibility to do anything about at all. but they billed the school board saying, we have to do research on this to find out what the ramifications of this are, and they now write us a big check. You're all paying for it. And this is a rigged game, and it's been this, my daughter, when she was 6 years old, said it better than anybody I've ever met. We were relaying all the bricks on a brick patio behind our house. We're doing it from what was called a square tile to a herringbone. So I'm pulling all the bricks out. She's 6 years old, she says, you know what? Every time you lift up a brick, there's more grubs, more worms, and more beetles. Why is that? Every town I go into in this district, and every town I go into around the state, we're finding this same cookie cutter pattern. The reason we chose Lacey and the solar thing is they're using that as a model. You can carry that same bogus transaction and find it all over the state of New Jersey, also with these numbers. Now, Lacey is the example. They bought it for $19.8 million for somewhere less than 7,000 solar panels. There's only 2,700 on the roof of the high school, so let's say that it was 5,000 solar panels. It's really probably a little less than that. And they're small. They paid almost $20 million for this. The attorney's fees were excessive. The state came in and said that the architect's fees were excessive. They even felt that that number was too much. And you know they'll take anything. That's pretty, you've got to be pretty much over the top if the comptroller says, hey, wait a minute, now you're getting a little too greedy. Lacey spent $19.8 million. Can we round that to $20 million to make the math easy tonight? In Tinton Falls, New Jersey, is the largest installation of solar in a private installation in the state, actually in the Northeast. They put 100 acres in, 85,000 panels, not 2,700, 85,000 panels for $80 million. So 4 times the price of the Lacey installation. 4 times. Okay, for a 100-acre installation that's producing 19.88 megawatts of power. So about 1/40th of Beasley Point on 100 acres. That's it. Now it's 100 acres of Monmouth County land, but I didn't factor the cost in that. They only paid $5.5 million for it. It was a brownfield. Okay, that's what that was to build. The panels and the equipment and the net metering equipment was $80 million. So for 4 times that, $80 million. 85,000 pounds. What that works out to is they paid $31 on the dollar per pound in this, compared to that other installation. And that was done with union labor up north, not cheap labor. That was done, yeah, everybody had the union dues paid before they walked on that job site. You just see the big inflatable rats. This guy's not a union man, huh?
I'm a realist.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm just saying, there's no comparison when you take that type of an installation, quality installation, to walk through it, and you look at one where they had to put aside an extra $3 million in case the roof leaked. And then they had to come back. They had to come back and redo it again. The roof still had to be repaired. It actually turned out they bonded $8 million extra, and what they did with the money, which they're paying a debt service on. They're paying the debt service on this with a prepayment penalty. They can't even take the excess money and dump it back against the principal. They guaranteed the investor their money. You can't even do that in a primary mortgage to buy a house. Even in the subprime market, New Jersey doesn't allow a prepayment penalty. Commercially do, but commercial has no regulation. If you want to be a commercial bank and lend money as a broker in a commercial world right now in New Jersey, the requirement is a blue pen. There's no license. Yes?
So as a township, if you want to bond for another $10 to $15 million, he's a council member, so am I. So if we want to bond for $10 to $15 million, you're saying on that $15 million, we're going to spend 10%.
You're going to spend the juice of about 1.5 for the bond attorney.
1.5.
That's not counting what you, 1.5 million, that's not even counting what you pay your township attorney. That's just big. That's another fee. And that happens in every township in this state.
I was not aware of the fact that you needed an attorney to go through the bond deal.
No.
Well, I'll ask you the question, because
Every
you're
time-
asking the same way.
yes.
Why do you need another attorney involved in this
No, you're right.
transaction?
You're right. You're right. And
This is
is
something,
the fee
this is something
excessive?
new
It's
for us.
Yeah, I mean, for us to look at that and hear this today. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our township and find out our last bonds that which we've had.
Well, we keep rebonding, don't forget.
Yeah,
Now
well,
I
well,
And
understand.
every
why.
time you rebond, you're paying, it's like churning a mortgage. You keep paying
Yeah,
another
that's-
round
yeah.
of closing costs.
Well,
And
yeah,
there-
because we get a lower rate, though.
Well,
From
yeah,
when
but
we
if
were
you get a
paying 5 or
lower-
6%, now we're paying 1.5 to 2%.
Well, now that's okay, and you gotta do what's called, as you know, in the mortgage world, a break-even analysis. So you
that's
count
correct.
how many months did you
That's
work,
correct.
and you do that.
Right.
Lacey Township's electric bill is $30,000 a month. Their bond would take 56 years if it was at Bank of Grandma with no interest.
Well, what's wrong with our account? We've been bonding
Because
forever.
they pay too much. There's nothing wrong with solar. Solar at $1 to $1 is fine. Solar at $1 to $31 is ridiculous. If
Yeah,
you went,
you're right.
let me ask, if you went into a restaurant, you sat down and had a steak dinner with your wife or your husband, steak, surf and turf, $20 a piece, and there's a table next to you with 30 people at it. If the waiter brought you the check for 32 people, are you paying it? They are.
Right.
And they're paying juice on it, they can't even prepay it. Because the government, they've already got their credit card. Yes, sir.
Why can't you skip a bonding thing and go to a major bank and bond it?
If we create a bonding authority through the Attorney General's office that's administered by the state and spend about $2 to $3 million a year in salaries for on-staff attorneys that we're already paying for, and a bunch of CWA workers to actually produce the packages, that's exactly what you could do. We're proposing that you do exactly that.
So you're
Okay.
saying go beyond what the state regulations,
Yeah,
just bond.
Get a loan.
on-
Well,
yeah. In other words, go to
even
a local bank,
bond-
Bank of
a bond is a
America.
loan.
No, no,
A bond
he's
is a
not
loan. They
saying
go out and they sell that bond to an individual investor. That investor's usually a smaller bank. And there's a limited number of banks that can be that person. In fact, some towns even specifically restrict which banks that the bond attorney is allowed to sell the bonds in. We're dealing with one right now where it's a specific attorney and they're required to sell it to only a specific bank. And interestingly enough, both that bond firm and that attorney have people that are related to people that are on the town council. By the way, they're preparing to do a solar project like yours and Lacey. We'll be taking care of that. What happens is this though, you can do something right now by approaching your school board and asking why you don't have in-house counsel. You don't need to have a law firm. You need one attorney. And you could pay, let's make it extreme. I've been telling everybody $125. Make it $150,000 a year. Hire the best. You want an expert. I mean, we all know the old joke about the guy gets his hand cut off. He goes into the hospital and they tell him it's going to be $100,000. He's got no insurance. Well, what do? He goes to the clinic across the street. He goes to the clinic. They tell him it's going to be $10,000. He doesn't have $10,000 either. So he goes over and he sees tattoos and minor surgery. So he goes in. The guy says, "Yeah, I'll stitch you right up for $100." So he goes out and he gets it. The hand works okay. Looks all right. Doesn't get infected. He's out about 2 weeks later. He sees the other two golf. I shouldn't be calling a joke like this. You see the other two guys out on the golf course, and he walks over. He says, "You see this hand? You wanted $100,000. You wanted $10,000. I got it done for $100. So the two of you can." All right. You get what you pay for.
Did you?
Okay. I didn't mean to do that. That's for fun.
That's all right.
You get what you pay for. Put it at 150. Lacey spent more than that fighting a recall that hadn't happened yet. Okay, put it at 150. They could be pension eligible, but only they participate. They have to put their own money in. You don't have to pay for that. Healthcare eligible. You have to make it available to them. Affordable Care took care of that. We've got a solution to that too. We'll talk about it. Okay, they can participate in that. But one attorney. Then you set up, which we've already done, a group of attorneys that are experts in bonding, experts in the law that affects school choice. We're fighting a big one on that. I was at the assembly yesterday on that. That you can have that attorney call. You can get somebody from right here in the community that has their JD and doesn't want to sell their soul to one of these big firms. And they can only work for you. They can't do a will for their brother-in-law. You make them an exclusive counsel. Your cost savings in your school board and your township will be huge. Find out what you paid. I mean, we had the numbers from all over the county, but you've got to get this year's numbers. I don't want to tell you about 2 years ago. You might have had an issue. Okay? And I'm going to bring one up in a moment. Your former, well, I'll tell you right now, your former mayor, which Eric's going to talk to you about later, you guys had an issue very recently. Not that one, that one further back. Not that one, this one. You guys had an issue
Need a
very
drink on that
recently
one.
with the township council moving to block political speech. And I imagine everybody in this room kind of supports the Constitution, at least a little, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I would imagine you're not real happy with this move against your First Amendment rights. Do you know who the case law is that is the basis of why they can't do it? Wesley Bell v. Stafford Township. He's the guy. Now, maybe you liked him, maybe you didn't, but he's the case that shows that they cannot restrict your political speech. He's the one that took it all the way to the end, pro se.
Yeah.
And you know who he beat in that case? Smile here, you got it, George, my buddy. Oh, he don't like me a little bit. The only thing he and people ask me about, well, you and Lonigan, the only thing he and I have in common is we're both on Gilmore's dartboard. Although, the ones that we're the anti-corruption guys. Steve Lonigan actually told your guys to come to our organization to help you with this in Stafford. That'll be brought up later. I don't want to steal your thunder. He's got a lot to talk about. Other people are helping you too. But I'm telling you, you can do that same thing. Go to single council in your school board, and now you don't get these surprises where 1 year you're paying $800,000. I mean, these guys in Lacey, if they were in the securities business, or the insurance business, or the mortgage business, and they did all this work preemptively and billed you for it, that's called churning, and you go to jail, okay? In the legal world, it's called being proactive with your money. I would imagine that doesn't make you very happy, does it? Now, every town has good people that are in their leadership, and every town has its things. They're generally not the ones you can see. When you walk out into a parking lot, you don't see these things. When you kick the logs over at the end, you might find them. Okay, your worst offenders are not your elected officials. They may have the puppet strings on. Okay, I so want to have some fun with the whole Punch and Judy thing in the debate with my two opponents, but we're not going to play that game today. I'm here to talk not as a candidate, but as an advisor to you guys on what you can do to reduce your costs. Approach your school board for single council. Approach your town council for single council, and watch those bills grow. Now, what they do with the money, you'd hope they'd reduce the taxes, but let me ask you this, if it didn't reduce the taxes, but it went to something else in the town that was a benefit, would that still be okay? I imagine most of you don't like, you're not against the new community center, you might be against the fact that you're paying 10% too much for it. I will ask why you're paying $3 million for steel building, but I don't want to go too far into detail there. Concrete's cheap. Did they
We
We
have
have
not paid that.
You're not doing it? It was turned down?
No, not at the current rate, at $600 a square foot, going after retail.
That's what I want to hear. And I can tell you, I don't use the business.
center?
Yeah, all the centers in Stafford Township, we have two of them that we're looking at reconstructing. One on Mill Creek, one on Bay Avenue. Both those projects are on hold because we felt that it was excessive and we weren't willing to pay that kind of money, which is $600 a square foot,
I agree.
to reconstruct buildings. So we're looking at somewhere between 175 to 250. Which is, I'm in the construction business.
You're right on the money, right? Today, that's the
I'm not that I'm a builder, but I've been selling builders for 35 years. So that's a realistic number. So that's where we're at. We're reducing the size of the one on Mill Creek Avenue, and we're building a bigger building on Bay Avenue.
Now this, I want to ask you, the steel building that we're going to do that now they're not, was that going to be galvanized or red iron?
Say that again?
Was us redoing this
The
building?
steel
This
structure.
building over here, the one up.
Yeah, no, this building is going to be demolished. What we're going to do is
Are they doing it with red iron?
yeah,
Okay.
it's steel. And
Steel building, yes.
Steel building, and we feel as though we can do that for, somewhere around $200 a square foot. The reason being is because when Beekhaven West got washed over, which could happen again,
Yes.
it may not happen tomorrow, it may happen 10, 20 years from now, but if that happens, this center would be able to accommodate the residents that got washed out.
That's an excellent idea.
And that was the problem that we had over there, because we had no place to send our people, so we had to, actually, Bob Guzik got
Between
myself.
the churches.
You had people all the way up by
Yeah,
where I live.
well, no, up there, we went to St. Mary's, we went to King of Kings, we went to something, and they all opened up their facilities and took in hundreds, if not thousands of people to accommodate that. Now, that's what we want to avoid. We want to be able to not tap into all those church,
The school don't get
at school, all those things we use. But what we want to do is be able to say, hey, here's a center that you can go in, you can get showered, you can get cleaned up, you can bring your family in for a few days until you make arrangements, and then keep the cost down to below, we already established a bond, what, $2.5 million? Roughly $2.5 million. Now, we haven't borrowed 5 cents from that, so that's not in effect yet. But the money's there to reconstruct those two buildings, one on Mill Creek Avenue, one on Bay Avenue. Bay Avenue being the bigger building to accommodate all of Manahawkin, not just Beach Haven West.
I'm just liking the fact that you're building in red iron for that, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
My
Well,
brother-in-law's building two big buildings that have two baseball
No,
fields
no.
inside each one.
So we reduced
That's
the,
way to enclose space.
reduced the building over in Beach Haven West significantly because of the insurance reasons, because it got destroyed. So unless you build it up to the current
Standards. or-
standards, which
Yes.
would be extremely expensive, we have said, no, we're not gonna do that, but yet you're gonna have a great building which will accommodate 75 to 125 people, but not 250 people. So if you need to have that, you can come over here to Bay Avenue. So we're really conscious of the money that we're spending, okay, on the tax base.
I'm glad that's going to rebid.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys are involved is what's going to cost, do the most cost cutting. We can propose all the stuff that we propose.
Right.
But it's got to come from you.
Yeah.
You've got to watch these guys like a hawk.
Everybody here.
You're right, and it's not even, I'm telling you, it's not even the guys on the DS in the meeting over there in your beautiful new building, which I've spoken at a couple of times for the fisheries guys. I'm in there all the time.
Right.
Beautiful building. Okay. They're not necessarily the problem. Some are, and you know which ones.
We know.
I don't have to tell you, I'd love for you to tell me, because our intention in my running, my candidacy is based on the fact that we want to bring the power of the federal office down here to go into these investigations. Because right now, you can take stuff to the Ocean County prosecutor's office, and if it's one of Gilmore's babies, you're going nowhere.
Yeah. We know it's a
I'll say
good,
that for the camera, because I'm going to tell you right now, off the subject, there's a judge in Sayreville, New Jersey, who's being sued, or actually is up on charges for voter fraud, for voting in an address he doesn't live at. He was facing 3 to 5 years in prison. He agreed to resign. They're going to give him pretrial intervention, which maybe they shouldn't have done. But 3 to 5 years in prison for voter fraud, permanent loss of his right to vote in the state of New Jersey, permanent loss of his right to hold any state elected office. The only thing he's got left is he can still vote for Congress or Senate or President, because the Constitution doesn't have anything that restricts you, even if you're convicted of voter fraud.
sure,
There's
absolutely.
no federal, so he'll have to go in, he can cast a provisional ballot with a witness.
Right.
So he'll still be able to vote. Why I bring that up is you have to live where you vote, okay?
Great.
I'll let that play out. All I'm gonna tell you is, that might be something that you might wanna take a little look into. Who voted where? All I'm gonna say. All right, we're gonna get off that subject. Back to this, what has to happen is it takes your activity in your township government, either running for office if you're not satisfied with who's there, or holding your feet to the fire. And if holding your feet to the fire means running a recall, Scott Colabella has done everything he can to make that impossible. He lied, and I'm going to say, he lied to them. He told them they had 23 days to get their signatures. The statute says 160 days, and it's not up to Scott Colabella. He is not elected as a legislator. He's a clerk. They had 160 days to get their signature.
Fred,
Yes, sir.
it's important to point out that they drug their feet and never approved the petition until we only had less than a month to get 5,000
Absolutely. In
signatures.
fact, they were whining about font size, which is not part of the statute.
Oh,
I wish,
they want-
I really wish this was a joke. But we're in court right now about something that you guys need to know about that you haven't read in the paper anywhere. When they held the primary on June 3rd, and if you're Republican or Democrat, you bleed Republican or Democrat, I'm sorry if I offend you when I say what I say. I'm not anti-Republican, I'm not anti-Democrat, I'm anti-thief. Okay? But in the Republican and Democrat primary, insufficient votes were tallied in the primary for either party to qualify for those left columns. It's not even close. And your lieutenant governor issued a certification that says that they passed that threshold. She took her signature, she put the state seal on it, and said 372,000 people darkened the doorway for the Republicans and the Democrats. You can go home in 10 minutes and Google and total up 21 numbers and know that she lied. Okay? Whether she'll be ever taken to task for it, we're working on that. We're in the appellate court right now on this, and we're already preparing work to go to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals because they're dragging their feet on that. We qualified for a ballot column. How many people got their sample ballots? Okay? My name's Fred Laverne. I'm supposed to be in column 3 with Eugene Laverne as the Senate candidate and Tracy Caprione as the freeholder candidate. We bracket, we qualify for a bracket. You won't find us on that sample ballot in the column. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans qualified for a column, and yet in August, they were drawn for position 1 or 2. And miraculously, when they draw these positions, Hudson County, 41 of 42 years in a row, drew the Democrats for line 1. 41 of 42. If you flip a coin 41 times, or 42 times, and can get it to land on heads 42 times, if you counted the molecules in our solar system, 2 to the 42nd is a larger number. Okay? So the man with the golden arm up there, and they know how they did it, and we know how they've done it in the past. There's video of the Monmouth County draw where you can see her throw it up in the air, let it fall on the floor, reach back and take a capsule off the shelf and open it up and read it.
Reach back under the counter,
And take another one.
not once,
A
but twice.
politician wouldn't do that, would they?
No. This was the clerk, with
This is
the,
like the world's worst card trick.
with the county clerk standing there and the county clerk's counsel standing there on top of this. They took these little pills, and if you've ever seen it, I
That's
don't know
what
if
the
you
statute
have,
says. They
you're
put
gonna
the
have,
capsule.
you're gonna laugh. You take little pills, just as, you know, your contact pills or whatever. They take them out, they get blank ones, they take a little piece of paper, write a name on it, roll it up, put it in the thing. Okay? They take it, put it in a little box. In Monmouth County's
It's a
case,
cardboard
it's a
box.
cardboard box with a piece of cardboard on top. She throws the things in, does one of these things.
And in no time did Claire Finch's hands leave her sleeves.
That's true. All right? And of course, these things are tiny little things, they're slippery, and they go, ping, and you watch.
Well,
They
the
go
way they used
chasing
to
it,
do it, but now
and
they know we're watching,
second time.
is they used to take
You
the
don't
capsule.
see, you don't see them when they unroll them,
It's like,
but that's not even the part of it. The part of it is, the Democrats and Republicans shouldn't even be there.
you're right.
They're not, they weren't entitled,
Right.
I'm gonna say eligible and entitled. They like to use the title a lot. I prefer eligibility. If you qualify, you qualify. If you don't, you're not. They literally used to take the numbers and they put them in a capsule, and they would crush the capsule they want or don't want, depends on how they're doing it. They drop them in a little bag, they put their hand in, and they take it out and they tear it apart. You don't know they marked it, and you'll never know they marked it. We know how they do it because the judge that retired and has since passed away actually was foolish enough to tell someone.
Oh, my God.
Okay. He was bragging about it. Monmouth is what, 36 of 38 years in a row for Republicans?
Something to that effect, yeah.
But Hudson's the absolute winner. I want to take that guy down to Vegas. I'm going to tell you, like, we're going to go to the roulette table. Well, let me tell you, when you toss a coin, Gilmore and Norcross on either side, when you toss that coin, every now and then that sucker lands on its edge. You have an independent in this race this time. Every now and then. And you know what? I didn't know that that's in the Mr. Smith's Go to Washington movie. I had never seen
Oh,
it.
you didn't?
My daughter said, no, you took that from, I didn't know. But you'll see that, we have a video of that, and we toss a coin and it lands on its edge. A lot of pigs. That's a thing, okay, but again, back to this, that ballot suit, you haven't heard a peep about that. We won that suit against, and forgive me, Steve Lonigan, Laverne v. Lonigan last year. The judge refused to give us remedy because there, quote, wasn't enough time left. 14 days was what it would take, and there wasn't 14 days left. Remember that number, because that's going to come up. Because if the appellate division doesn't make a decision before the 19th of October, you can bet your tail that the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia will. Okay, and at that point, you're going to see a new ballot. So if you've already filled out your mail-in ballot, you knew who you were voting for, God bless you, I'm glad you voted. Okay? I'm on your ballot. I believe in your town, you'll probably find me in column 5 rather than column 3. And you're going to have to look for me. Last time, listen, 2 years ago in Cape May, they put my brother in column 13. You know where that is on the ballot?
On the back.
On the back. It's on the back. And their argument was, and I'm not making this up, well, the ballot has 6 sides. Oh, she hates us with the fire of 10,000 suns. I deliver because I wasn't the one running. I'm the guy that used to go and serve all the 21 county clerks, and they gave us 48 hours to do it. I can do it. I can hit all 21 in 48 hours, every one of them served. It's a nightmare drive, but it can be done. They never in a million years thought we'd get all 21 served. We won the suit against Mr. Lonigan, and again, he's my friend. We're opponents, but we're not adversaries. Okay, in fact, spent 5 hours with him not too long ago. We're going to take him fishing. He can't publicly support me, but he certainly does recommend us. When he needs somebody for constitutional law, he says, call the Laverne brothers. Well, why I said all that to you is we're going to win this case. and they're not gonna know what to do. So they're already rallying how they're gonna cheat again. How many people have gotten a mailer asking you to do a mail-in ballot when you haven't done one before? That's the next thing. We're not gonna talk about that tonight either. I'm just saying, watch the news, because I'll get that out. Okay, that's the next one. You get these counts, and what happens with the machines. I don't want to sound like the tinfoil guy, but you can look up Dr. Appel out of Princeton to find out how accurate those Sequoia machines are and how they can be manipulated. Okay, we cannot allow this crooked system to continue. And you're not going to beat them while they're in charge. It's not going to happen. You have to take away the checkbook. You have to take away the credit cards. It's like dealing with a teenager with a drug addict. You have to lock them in their room and take away all the tools and the car keys. Okay? They spend like a kid with dad's credit card or mom's credit card. But it's your money. 10% for what? To go print? That's what took Atlantic City and changed all the properties on the monopoly board to Baltic Blue. Now, I'm sorry if that seems like an over-the-top joke, but let's tell the truth. How many casinos closing? Now 2 more are on deck?
4.
Four closed.
Four.
Yeah, that's 2 more today, more than were coming, so we got 4 total, right?
Yep.
2 more were announced today. How much was invested in the pension money, both in the Port Authority projects and in the Rebels? That's why they can't pay the teachers back. They need the system to fail, or they're going to bond to put back money that never belonged to them in the first place, and you're going to pay the bill.
Absolutely.
You're going to pay that bill.
Taxes are constantly going up.
You're not gonna be able to afford the bond.
Would you like to know how to, would you like to
Never
know how to
gonna
solve the
change.
pension problem? Because we've worked on all of this. They tell you, oh, they don't have a platform. There's not an issue you can pick that I couldn't do 2 hours on. Promise. Even on the pipeline for the Pinelands. I was the first guy to talk to Ed Lloyd when he recused himself, when they forced him out because he was the only environmental attorney on the Pinelands Environmental Commission. And we can't have that. God forbid, we can't have him on the board. He
Chris
might actually-
hasn't appointed new members yet, he's waiting till after the election.
He has appointed 2 suggested, and one is Dennis Rohr, the chicken farmer, that's been trying to get an illegal development done on the base with no participation for shared services for years on the Pinelands. And then certain gentleman that lives in Lacey Township, and we aren't going to talk a little about that because we're actually taking some action on that specific issue. So I can't tell you about that, but you'll read about that in the spring of next year.
So tell me, what's your solution on Social Security?
Social Security, well, when I was asked at the Esbury Park Press debate that they didn't even have this year, because the Esbury Park Press is now printing the full instructions, bird cage in the bottom. They didn't even have the editorial board this year. When I was asked that, and by the way, when I walked out of that meeting, the other 2 independents in the race dropped out and endorsed me against Mr. Runyon and Mrs. Adam. I was asked what I would do about Social Security. In my opinion is it should be a line item on the federal budget. It should be the first bill we pay, unless you want to put the veterans ahead of Social Security. Okay? We pay that bill, period.
How about $110,000, you don't pay any more Social Security. So if you make $110,000 in salary, it stops. So anybody making $150,000, they only pay Social Security up to 110. If you're making $1 billion a year,
You still pay the same as the guy that makes
110.
I
How
agree.
about they start there and go after those guys that are making 100, 120, 130?
I agree with you.
How about that?
I'll go one further. If they're going to say that corporations can have protected speech under Citizens United, they should pay individual tax rate.
Yeah. The bottom line is.
You want it, you get all that comes with
The
it.
bottom line is that they could generate probably about 30 to 40% more money, because when you take the average person is making 50, 60, 70 grand, they have no idea. They're clueless. I talk to my sons.
You're right.
Both of them working, they have no idea. Dad, are you kidding me? Are you lying to me? No. At $110,000, you pay Social Security. So like the people that own my company, they make that in 3 days at my company.
You're
So
right.
they make that amount of money, and then after the 3 days that they work, now they don't pay any Social Security.
And they're
Buffett, Gates.
And
And
they're
I'm not going after the rich. I'm just saying, if you live in America and you're collecting a salary,
You're right.
you should pay no matter, and that was put in strictly by lawyers and all the big money,
Who's surprised?
nobody. Nobody's sitting here, and I would bet you if you took a poll in here, probably about 70% of the people in here have no idea that that's been taking place.
That's very possible.
Oh, yeah, I would say it, because when I talked to my sons, they said, are you kidding me, Dad?
You're not
And
told
both
that.
of them.
You're not told that.
One of the proudest
They don't tell
moments
you
of
that.
my life.
It used to be when we would go a certain amount of months, and all of a sudden we'd get a little bump in our paycheck. They go, how come? Well, you paid up your social security.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in 20 years.
So unless, if you're making $110,000 or less, you're paying your social security on your check. But if you make $111,000, that $1,000 more,
free.
you don't pay social security.
That's right.
One
And
second, because I
all
want
the
to say
way
something, then I'm going to get to you guys. You're absolutely right. One of the proudest moments of my life was an interesting thing. Every year, about 20 years ago, they started sending out a statement of your anticipated retirement, but only if you were going to earn more than the bottom number. To save costs, they didn't send them to everybody. You had to be in one of the higher tiers for Social Security to pay you when you retired, and then they mailed that out. And one of the proudest moments of my life was to get that letter for the first time, which meant that not only was I vested, not only was I going to have my Social Security, but I had got to bump up the ladder. I'd earned enough to be able to be that next guy up. And my wife still teases me because we worked in very disparate jobs, and she was never paid anywhere near what she was worth. We know payroll's never been equal, but we also have very different jobs. And she finally got her first letter 3 years ago, and she was tickled to death. Okay.
But that just goes to show you what's going on, that most people that live in America have no idea.
Oh, you could fix it in moments. And the argument is always given,
One-
oh, but if
one
we
second.
tax the rich, it's going to hurt business.
Yeah, baloney.
You take that out, you think they're going to close their doors because
No
you
way.
took the money out?
No way.
They're not.
No way.
They may charge you 10 cents more for the slice of pizza, okay, in the Walmart, but that's not what, that's
I
not.
mean,
what
there's
you're doing.
years that I've gone by that I made less than that 110,
Mhm.
but then there's years that I made more than 110 because I'm strictly commissioned.
Mhm.
So when I make that
So was I.
125 or 130, I go, wow, what a great break.
And you want
But
to know.
is that right? It's
Well,
not right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But my point was, that when I said, you asked the question, my answer to your question was, I wanted a mandatory part of the federal budget. And back in 2012, when we were running, we hadn't produced a budget since 2007. Okay, so I had to use that as an example, but I wanted just the first line. Mr. Runyon's answer, by the way, and this is very funny, because he brought 2 Ambers to the meeting. He had 2 people with him to help him, like Mr. MacArthur had his Apple iPad, and he was fighting with Flanagan on Dr. Dano, and they were telling him what the same guy did. And yes, I'll say that for the paper, because we know that's what happened. Sorry to be snarky, but the truth is true. When he was asked that question, his answer was, well, I would raise the retirement age to 75, and they kicked his chair. And he turned around and he said, I mean 72, and they kicked his chair again. And then the guy from the press says, well, Mr. Runyon, we gave you these questions, and your written answer said the same thing as Mr. Laverne, that you would make it a mandatory line item in the budget. At which point, Shelley had to talk to her. Sorry for the invitation. And Runyon's answer defines his time in Congress, which is why I'm glad he's endorsing my opponent and not me. It defines it. He said, it does? His written answers. Who did the homework for the jock and didn't read it to him? Please. I'm sorry. I don't dislike Mr. Runyon. We have done business together. I know him. Okay. But I don't think I ought to worry about it if I go on Jeopardy.
No, you have to
I'm
wait.
sorry if I made you laugh, and I didn't mean to do that. He's actually a pretty nice guy. The only thing that's ever really aggravated me about John is we're very, very pro-veteran, like the hats I've seen around the room. We're very, very pro-veterans. Okay, I have an enormous respect. I did not serve, but my father did. All of my ancestors did, except one grandfather, because he was 4F and he was also an engineer. So even if he could have gone into the Seabees, which he tried to, they wouldn't let him, because he was a tool and die maker. He said, now you're staying here and working in Brooklyn, taking the train from Union Beach. He wasn't happy about that, but he did it. So they've all served honorably, very honorably in some cases. Okay. John Runyon was approached because an 88-year-old man had been in the Hamilton Township VA Center. And because there was a, believe it or not, customer service benefit for the staff there, so they had substitute staff for Rick. Substitute staff couldn't find him in the appointment book, and they told him he'd have to come back. He was there to get a prescription refilled, and he hadn't seen the doctor for many days. So he was out of pills and hadn't seen the doctor. 88-year-old World War II veteran. they turned him away. And they turned him away rudely. Rude, very rudely. Rudely enough that Natalie Green, who came here and spoke to you folks, wrote a letter to Mr. Runyon, which I have on my website, asking for him to intervene. Mr. Runyon's response, as the head of the committee that takes care of this, since my tenure in Congress is ending in 7 months, I've passed this to Senator Menendez. Now,
Oh, God.
don't believe me? I'll send you the letter. I was astonished. He says, what do I do about this? I said, give me the phone. 2 hours later, he had a prescription on his way down home. They brought him up by car to take care of it. They took care of it internally, and now I'm friends with the fellow that runs that district. Okay? We have a solution to the VA. We have a solution to affordable care. We have a solution to Medicare. That solution is to take those 3 bureaucracies and make them one system. Now, I realize that's a huge leap for everybody to wrap their mind around. But how many of you know veterans that have to go to Delaware to see a dentist?
Really?
Yes.
West Orange.
Or West Orange to see for anything physical or mental health. Now, my opponent has said, oh, we can save the Joint Base. We'll put a hospital on Lakehurst Naval Air Station. Well, if you think that's going to work, explain to me why Patterson Hospital in Fort Monmouth is no longer a hospital. Because guess what the Pentagon said? They can drive to East Orange.
Jeez.
Okay? That's not going to save your base. We have a solution for that too. I'll do it in another meeting. You had a question, sir.
Now, I didn't do well in accounting, but I can't understand how we're gonna run out of social security money, but we're not gonna run out of welfare money.
Especially
Well,
for illegal.
once again, it's a question of political will versus political won't. You make it a line item in the budget, you're not going to run out of money, are you? I mean, we know they'll always print more, and it seems to me that both parties seem to have a decimal problem. Okay.
Really?
Well, that's that Common Core thing. We're dealing with that in the election. 2 + 2 = 2D2. The fight that we're having, this certification from Kikuidano, 2 + 2 = 2D2. You walk into a voting booth on June 3rd, and you cast a ballot in this primary for a senator, congressman. In this state, it was in this county, it was 1 freeholder. We didn't have a sheriff at this time, did we? We just did the sheriff.
Right.
Okay, so those 3, and then if you had 2 town council meetings and members and dog catcher. Congratulations, did you know you're 6 people? I'm making that up. Can you imagine that? You're 6 persons, you're 6 voters, according to your lieutenant governor. You're 6 people. Okay, that's how they counted and said that you got to the threshold. The threshold that gives them the column, all they have to poll is 10% of the people that cast a vote for the assembly. And you've got 2 assembly persons in every district, so everybody's casting 2. How hard can this be? That's the standard. Okay? They had to get 10% of the people that showed up and cast a vote in the midterm election for assembly. That bogey this year was one of the biggest it's ever been, but they've missed it for years. 372,000 or 378,000, I don't remember the exact number, I should remember it, but I've been doing these numbers all day, so unfortunately it's not coming to the head. Over 370,000. Look at Kim's certification, because she didn't say how many voted, she says in excess of that number. The Democrats got 50.33%, I do know these numbers, of what they were supposed to, and the Republicans got 40.22. That's all the Tommies, and all the Steves, and all the write-ins, plus all the other Republicans in all the other 21 counties. That wasn't just this county, that was the state. They couldn't get the 372,000 voters to show up in a primary, but they're in charge. The total primary voters that you had for the Republicans in this, both Stephen and Tom, less than 2% of the possible voters in the election. I'm sure every one of you voted in the primary, at least most of you, unless you were ill or otherwise. Am I pretty much correct? Because you care. Because this matters to you. We've created a situation where the Democrat-Republican organizations, they throw negative ad after negative ad after negative ad at each other in a pillow fight. Because they're really not hitting any issues that are important. They're not talking about health care. They're not talking about Social Security. They're not talking about corruption, God forbid. Okay? We're certainly not going to talk about insurance reform or tort reform. Tommy's idea of tort reform is that you shouldn't be allowed to sue insurance companies. I'm sorry, that was a statement he made in Randolph. Then go ahead and take it in court, pal. By the way, slap suits, like when he sued Lonigan for coming out against him about telling the truth about suits that were against York Services Group, that would have been thrown out. He was never actually going to go to court. He didn't know that. They sued all of the employees down to the woman that answers the phones that Camp did. They used K. Martin Scatcher, the Republican attorney. Now, wait a minute, isn't Lonergan a Republican? No. In name, anyway. We love Lonergan. Their attorney, K. Martin Scatcher, who's also the Burlington County Republican attorney, filed what's called a SLAPP suit. It has no basis in law, so what happens is it's going to get thrown out. But it's great press that he sued that they can't talk about all the bad things that this guy might or might not have done. The problem is, if you're a public figure, it doesn't work. The specific case, Sullivan versus New York Times, was a case done by Thomas F. Daly. Now, the reason why we always talk about it, they always say, talk to the Laverne brothers. Thomas F. Daly was the attorney for the New York Times for 30 years. Okay. It's now called McCarter in English. We used to have a different name back then, it was only one guy. A lot of partners. Thomas F. Daly, and Christmas Eve dinner in our home for 16 years when we were growing up. We weren't wealthy people, but my father was well known because of what he did for a living, and these people kind of adopted us like their adopted grandkids. Marcus Daly, who ran against Jim Howard, was Thomas's brother. So when somebody says to me, you know about this SLAPP suit thing, I think we might be experts on that, having talked with Tom for all of his life from about 70 on until he passed away. We might know a little about that. And the answer was, we got in touch with Lonergan's folks and said, guess what? You have nothing to worry about. And then our attorney, Rich Luzzy, reviewed the case for his attorneys and said, this is what you did. And you notice there's no conviction. It technically never really got filed. And it's over. Why? Because SLAPP suits aren't real lawsuits. So I don't care what I say about a public figure, as long as I'm truthful as to the best of my knowledge. Okay? You'll see, I'm going to tell you right now, we intend to do flyers in your town. We're going to vigorously, publicly, vociferously go after that challenge to your First Amendment rights. I'm going to ask for help to get them distributed. Well, we'll put our name on the bottom, paid for by Laverne, so that they know who they got to sue. Bring it. Bring it. We already know where the law stands, and it happened in this town. There's experts all over the country that would love to come in here and get the press for doing it. Okay? We kick the door down, go in and find out what they've really been doing. We sent a fellow over to Lacey Township, one of our guys, he's running for your freeholder. He teaches mathematics, so he doesn't have a decimal problem. Tracy teaches mathematics at Asbury Park High School, so if you think that, or middle school rather, so if you think that Mr. Gilmore and his group of guys can scare Tracy, I doubt it. He has the nerve to walk into that school and stand in the front of everything. He's come out, and I'm not making this up, to bullet holes in the doors and in his car. Okay, tough neighborhood up there. Christmas dinner, they serve broken like a lamb. So anyway, that's the guy running for your freeholder seat. Tracy walked in, and I'll ask you, Tim, how quickly did he find the first instance of overbilling?
He found a place where we were double billed about $6,000 for one of the special services for special needs children.
About how fast? Like second?
Well, we were there for an hour total, so it wasn't very far into it.
And they were really there to read the utility bills, but they got into other things. There's things that happen like that, and that wasn't a mistake. They'll call it a mistake. That wasn't a mistake. They put the same check amount through twice. Why? Because nobody would notice there were two checks. Now, the person that does the checks and the person that's in charge of deciding where the money goes might be related. Your other big problem you have down here in Ocean County and Gilmore land is the friends and family plan. Can I guess that if I was to look into, for example, your municipal utilities authority, we might find a lot of folks that are related to other folks that work? I haven't looked. I'm asking. I'm assuming that if I pick up that brick, I'm going to find some beetles and some grubs and some worms. Am I pretty close to that, right? Being right? I'm sorry if I'm a bit of an animated speaker. It's 25 years in sales. I didn't mean to do that to you. I'm pretty likely to find them beetles and grubs and worms. What do you do about that? Well, the truth is, if they're qualified, that doesn't matter. Somebody says, well, your brother's running. My brother is a constitutional expert, okay, running for the United States Senate. Yes, he's qualified. I do money for a living, and I don't wear any party handcuffs. I'm damn qualified, okay? I don't think anybody that's ever run for this office in the last 20 years in any of the districts can try me on an environment. Not a chance, okay? And I'm not trying to say that to pat myself on the back. I'm going to tell you, the pipeline issue wasn't about the pipeline. I worked as one of the student members of the Comprehensive Management Plan being founded way back in 1970. We had people on the board that were there as guests, students. I was one when that first primary environmental commission met in Mount Mission in 1970. Okay. The only other student that actually showed up for all the meetings said we passed 2 issues from Cherry Hill. An old friend. I knew that some of these people. I knew Ed Wood from years ago. That's why he spoke to me for 45 minutes before he talked to a reporter. They did that pipeline debacle looking for that 14-mile shortcut, not because the 14-mile shortcut saved them money. It granted the memoranda of agreement to a private individual, private firm, through a public officer. Once they set that precedent, they can't get that genie back in the bottle, and that's why it was being done. They wanted that done so Dennis Rohr can build his houses out on the wire. They wanted that done so Christie's buddies up in Tom's River can get their Walmart built, where there's Pinelands. And they had it done so people that have already broken the law, putting in 3-4 times the cleared land on a particular sand pit that they weren't supposed to do, could maybe get a pass if somebody came in more aggressively than they have in the past to take them to task for violating the law that the DEP refused to enforce. Okay? When the union guys found out that they'd been up there protesting for a shortcut, they went crazy. Why would they protest for a 14-mile shortcut? It's less work. They were told that they were protesting that because the job might never happen. They're going to have to do something anyway, but they could have followed the law and gone 14 miles down the highway, but it wouldn't have bought anybody's land on either side. You know, the classic off-ramp scam, like exit 8A, which a certain Mr. Hughes at the office building up in Trenton is named for, and I'll say it right now on the tape, might have been responsible for why exit 8A even exists on the turnpike, because his buddies were giving them money and they built an exit to nowhere. They brought the highway to the exit instead of the exit to the highway. That's what happened way back when with the highway authority. Might know something about that in our family. That's why that was done. If you keep letting these people run your town this way and don't watch every step they do, every dollar they spend, every dollar they spend is you.
Yeah, but Fred, you gotta understand something. I've gone to a lot of council meetings, 28 years, I lived in West Orange. I never missed a council meeting. There was no less than 80 people. I would raise hell because there were a lot of things going down. When I moved, they published an article, full page by half page, from the frying pan into the fire. Because when I moved
Because
down
you're coming
here.
to Gilmore
Yeah,
country.
no, because I moved down here. Now, here's the problem. We're limited to 5 minutes. That's the one thing I can respect Carl Block for. He always allowed me to speak until somebody in the back of the room wanted to get up with some frivolous remark just to get me off, okay, by raising a hand and annoying. But here's the point. How do you stop that?
You're going to love the answer.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure they passed because we have a clerk who beats you. If you don't get off, she beats you. And one of these days, I swear to God, I'm going to go to jail because I feel like putting that where the sun doesn't shine. But here's the thing.
I like him.
Beach Haven West, I did a study back in 2006, taxrecords.com. I had it reviewed by the people that founded that. Okay, that's a huge website. There's a little over 6,000 people in this town that can't vote because they own summer homes here.
That's right.
All right, so you talk about apathy. Beach Haven West citizens that have been screaming at every council meeting since Sandy, they get lip service, they get, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're not getting anything solid either from the moron, who's the administrator, excuse me, moron. I keep making that mistake.
It's so close.
I know, it isn't it? And you just slip up. But here's the problem. You have a mayor, but here's the thing that's irritating. Did you see my article in the Sandpaper about 14.4 million in the budget under other expenses?
Absolutely did. And that's
That's a disgrace.
by the way, those were bonded dollars too, weren't they?
But here's the other problem. How the hell do you read an article? I go to my wife says, what do you do with all these papers? I get all the hard copy papers. It costs me a fortune every month. An article this big by that high. This is back when Carl Block and Chuck were in. A tiny article. Something to do with refinancing bonding. 8 o'clock in the morning. So who shows up? Me. Who else is there? Nobody. Carl Block comes dancing in his $800 suit, his airline pilot suitcase, briefcase. He looks at me.
Don't you love it when you're paying for jet fuel?
So then they asked about any comments.
That was a shot at Gilmore.
I only have one comment. What is this about? We're going to refinance $50 million in bonding. Well, guess what? It turns out they couldn't do it because it was like the third time, and if they did that,
It would come under scrutiny. There's a law about
there's
that.
high penalties for refinancing bonding too many times. But the thing is, screaming holy hell, either in the papers, at council meetings, I'm finished. Because the apathy in this town, because people don't stand behind you, and I'm not speaking for these people. I have a lot of respect for it. I'm probably more independent than I am Republican, because this isn't my party down here. These are Republicans in name only. I fought the Democrats in West Orange, and it made me sick to my stomach. You know, I don't think West Orange ever had a Republican mayor since the founding of West Orange. Okay,
It's very
ever.
possible.
But Essex County, and I still believe, just like the mob, when they divided Chicago into 4 quadrants, New Jersey's divided into 2.
You're on the money.
From the Raritan up, it's Democrat. From the Raritan down, it's Republican.
Well, Sal, you have the same problem I have. Sometimes when I speak, I cannot get to one issue in one sentence, but we really appreciate you. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
finish your...
Go ahead.
Sal, I want to tell you something, by the way. I've been reviewing the work of this man over the past several years, but looking back, we only were introduced very recently. You're my, I don't want to say what it is. You're my hero, I almost swore.
I love Sal. I love Sal because he is just like the Tea Party. He is engaged. But as Sergeant of Arms, sometimes I have to corral
That's okay,
people.
we're back to work.
The floor is yours again.
Where I'm going with that is, you can't change anything with the machine, even from here, unless you took a dominant role in the seats. The only way that's gonna happen is by, unfortunately, you can't vote for the Republican, because even if they are independent of the Gilmore machine, they can't get anything done. Do you really think that the 434 members of Congress are down there waiting for Tom MacArthur to save the day? I promise you, he's gonna be another gear in that little Swiss watch they built, and the same with Amy Norcross, Amy Belgore. Yeah, that was on purpose. Okay? On the other hand, I go down there, I'm an independent, I wear no handcuffs. Who will I caucus with? Depends on the issue. Somebody asked me who you're gonna caucus with, the Republicans and the Democrats. Depends on the issue. Okay, same way Angus King and Bernie Sanders do in the Senate. But I'll tell you what I'm not gonna be. I'm not a cog in the wheel. I'm probably a monkey wrench in your works. And if you think I've started here with something good, wait till you get me in Washington. And wait till we can bring the power and the authority of a federal congressional seat and walk into that prosecutor's office and say, you see this? This is wrong. And if you don't do something about it, we're gonna come after you as complicit in this. Okay? Gotta love recon. If a county organization can't be a corrupt organization, I got news for you. Yeah, they can. Okay? And that's the way you're gonna do this. You've gotta take that seat away from, just like I said, the profligate kid. No car keys, lock the liquor cabinet, take away the checkbook, take away the Visa cards, turn off the cell phone. Throw them the hell out. But you've gotta have the will, the political will, not political won't, to replace them. If I can get 1% of your trust and 1% of your support, I'll earn the other 99. I didn't come here as a candidate, but damn it if I'm not going to say that. We have the right people, everything from environment, education, immigration. I don't want to put you through 90 hours of this. I can. I talked to a group and we ended up for 19 hours. It wasn't intentional. We broke for water in the bathroom. Okay, I don't need to do that. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? You know what you need to do with your school board and your township committee, am I correct? You need to go approach them and say, why aren't we doing this? We're doing that in every town. We're telling everybody you should be doing this. One council. You don't hire a law firm that bills you by the hour. You put a contract, fixed cost. There may be a year you use that lawyer for $80,000 worth of work and he gets $150. There may be many years where he gets $750,000 worth of work and you paid $150 for it. All right? But he got what he was worth. Go ahead.
You got 2 windmills, they're working in concert. They're both named George, and Don Quixote is standing in the middle. How much do you think you're gonna be able to do as one individual if you get there? And that's not negative.
I'm not
that's
Don Quixote, I'm Guy Fawkes, and I'll burn them both down. Enough, go ahead. He started with the windmills.
No, I'm happy to see him. Yeah,
Well, ask me privately later. I'm gonna
Yeah,
ask
I
you,
remember,
there's
yeah.
a little black folder up here. I'm gonna ask a favor of each of you, if you'll do it. Everybody here's on email,
yeah.
okay? If you're willing. I'm not gonna load you down with spam like your mailbox look right now with the, who writes an ad, puts pig on it, puts their own name on it, puts insurance fraud on it, but it's an ad against the other candidate. It's Adult Swim, guys. But anyway, you get these things in the mailbox 15 times a week. We're not gonna do that. If I had the money to spend $3 million to spend for these mailers, I'd give it to a Boy Scout troop. I don't want that, but go ahead.
Listen,
I was giving him a chance to come.
Good.
All right, listen, there was, the vote, Rush Limbaugh, called most of the voters, you know, the uneducated voters. They don't
Or
vote.
sheeple, he refers to.
Right, okay. So you go on. My problem is you go back, last presidential election, 61% of the voters in this country actually went out to vote. It's a disgrace in Afghanistan and Iraq. 90% plus went out and voted on the threat of death. And you can vote by mail, you can vote absentee,
We should all have to have a purple finger.
you can probably almost even vote by phone.
We don't get the vote.
I proposed
Or
2
the
years
purple
ago, and
finger.
I was told I was too extreme. I proposed that you must register to vote, you must vote at least once every 4 years to maintain your driving privilege. I was told that was too extreme, so maybe again, that's what, and the person that told me that would have been my opponent at the primary, not a little different. I was more to the right than he was. But you're absolutely right, we don't exercise our privilege. 13.09 people in this state put Booker in the Senate seat. 13.09 of the available voters, yes.
Why would you want people to vote if you don't care, though? They're not engaged anyway.
We need to
Flip
engage
the
them.
coin.
We know, I want them to be
I don't want
engaged.
certain people engaged. I mean, I'm glad they're not voting. Certain people, seriously, because
Well, can I tell you something? And again, it's the beauty of democracy. It's okay to be wrong, too, if we vote by majority. You and I know, you and I, we're dealing with that in our White House now. I hate to say, I mean, certain people that support me would be very angry at me saying that. But we're working on the fraud thing like you have no idea.
The front's bad.
But it is, and we have a huge problem with that in this state, a huge problem, and we're in court on it right now. This state is the worst example, and I'm not kidding, because the expert on that, on how they use the machines is in Princeton, he's working with us. We overturned an election in Cumberland over fraudulent use of the Sequoia machines. We don't do that. Yes, sir.
It actually started, as a matter of fact, I had this conversation with Eric not too long ago. It starts locally. If you don't engage locally, which is your local politicians, your mayor, your council, your school board members, you know, that's the most important step in making things happen. Because if you vote here, it translates in the county, it translates in the state, and in the governor's. If you stay and say, it doesn't make any difference.
My vote doesn't count.
And you know what, I've heard people say, you know, to me, as a council member, say, you know what, Steve, I don't really care about voting, you know, but I have issues. Here's my issues, my taxes are too high. And I go, really?
What was the line from John
Why
Dickinson?
would I even listen to you as a person? Because you don't even take the time to find out what's happening in your own local town, let alone your state, your federal, and your presidential.
We are very privileged to live in New Jersey where
Amen.
liberty was bought and paid for. Okay?
And then some.
Crisscrossed our state. Okay?
Now look.
Crisscrossed our state. These flags that come around from the different parts of it, and we have a collection. Don, who's here tonight, is a candidate in District 1 against Mr. Norcross. And Gary Cobb, who somehow managed to get back on the special election ballot, having forgotten to file a petition. But Don is our candidate down there. Don and I are scoutmasters. Okay? We live, eat, breathe the scout oath and law. And I teach all of our scouts. I mean, anybody who's been a scout, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That's all fine. The most important word in that oath is is. A scout is trustworthy. He's not sometimes trustworthy. Okay? He's always the word. That is the most important word. You either are, or is you is, or is you ain't. Is you engaged? Is you is, or is you ain't. Okay? If you want to take your country back, I do. I just had my first grandson 5 weeks ago. I can't give him what I had in 1970 when I was an 8-year-old, climbing up the Bear Swamp Hill Tower 2 days before getting hit by the plane. So what I'm saying is,
Engage.
we have to engage the community. I need your help. You have to be fearless. And when I say fearless, you've got to be fearless enough to not have to vote Republican or Democrat. If the best choice is an independent, if the best choice is a libertarian, if the best choice, I don't know, I'm not going to do that as a camera. We have an expression we use, it's not right. You've got to stop pulling it. Again, one of my nieces, she says, every time you go into the election booth, it sounds like you're choosing whether you want to be poked in the left eye or the right eye. And I said, well, which one's left? She says, left's Democrat, right? She knew. She's 8 years old, but that's because of the house she's growing up in.
Fred's right. I mean, we got an election coming up. If you want to vote for Amy Bellegarde, vote for Amy Bellegarde. If you want to vote for Tom MacArthur, vote for Tom MacArthur. If you want to vote for Fred, you vote for Fred. If you want to write in Steve Lonigan, you do that.
Absolutely.
The thing is that there's no such thing as a wasted vote, because if you're voting for the person that you believe in, it's never wasted. That's one thing. And number two, everyone talks about, oh, you got to vote for this guy because otherwise the other guy will win. And I know it's the lesser of two evils, but you got to take them. Well, guess what? The lesser of two evils is still what?
Evil. Evil.
Why would you support that?
You know, it's a shame. There have been valid candidates that have come up in the party organizations that are not beholden to King George and King George.
Absolutely.
But because of money, they don't get seen. And only the rank and file voters show up. Even you guys show, you're a block of voters that maybe 2 or 3 of them might go one way and the rest are all going to go the other. But when somebody doesn't agree with it, I want to say this to the gentleman in the back here. When someone doesn't agree with you, it doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. You could both be right in different circumstances. You could also both be wrong. Ken Ferris runs the Patrick Henry University. It's for homeschoolers. They finally get university status. He's the one that's out trying to do the Constitutional Convention. I have to leave there with me on the planning commission. He's out trying to do a constitutional convention. And again, got sent to the Laverne brothers because they were trying to get 38 states to ratify. Now they found out they need 5 more. Because once a state calls for a constitutional convention, until it's held, that call is open. He didn't know. But you only need 5. They want to do that because there's some changes they want to see made. We need a state constitutional convention. There's changes that need to be made that we can do in the state constitutional convention, whether the Assembly and the Senate like it or not. That can be done by us. Our state constitution allows us to do that. We haven't done it since 1947.
Wow.
Okay. It's time, and we intend to host it next year. I'm going to tell you, you don't have to be in government office to do it.
You're talking about having a state constitutional, and that will be for next year?
We intend to host a state constitutional convention. We've already held a convention of independent candidates in Monmouth County, but you didn't read about that, did you?
No, absolutely not.
If they weren't there by phone, they were there in person except for 2, and that's only because we can't confirm. Apparently Herb Shaw may have passed away. I really hope he hasn't. He's been a candidate for 50 years. Everybody should have a voice. Everybody's voice is, you know, we have some folks that are 70% dead on and 30% unelectably insane. So unfortunately, that's what we deal with when we're painted as independents. They won't even let us be called independents anymore, by the way. They now changed it to unaffiliated. And when you got your polling calls, who here got a phone call for the polls now? Whether you're going to go A or B? I'm not going to use the name stuff. Did anybody get called to ask who they were voting for the election?
I did.
Okay. Did they mention that there were more than 2 candidates?
No.
No, they don't. And you know what they do when they're told there's more than 2 candidates? They hang up and don't count them. Now, this is the fun part. This is why when I say your vote's not wasted, I'm using mine as an example, but it doesn't have to be because it's about me. I understand that. There's a report that says out of Stockton State College, the Hughes Center for Public Policy, which God forbid, you don't think that might be leaning a little Democrat. Couldn't be that. Came out and said that the 2 opponents that I have are at 42% and 42%. There's 2 reasons why they reported that poll that way. One was a runaway victory, which unfortunately, and again, I love Steve Lonigan. I do. I think he's a great guy. But he was never going to beat the D in this state.
Yeah.
If you think that race was really only 6 points apart, it was never 6 points apart. They had to report that because if he was losing by 20%, sending him money isn't going to do anything for you. And if Booker is ahead by 20%, he doesn't need your money. So why are we at 42 and 42? Because somebody said he was going to self-fund it. Now he can't raise $1. He even had to try to have a sale of $1,000 pancakes and nobody showed. He's going to Randolph to pull the same stuff. Amy's raising money, but it's all coming from outside the state. There's nothing wrong with that. You can participate in the political process. It's legal to participate anywhere. If you want to donate money to somebody who's running for office in Alaska, you can do whatever you want to do with your funds. You pay your tax on it, they got their cut, now it's yours. Unfortunately, they take a pretty big cut, and now it's yours. All right? These calls and these polls, they don't mention that there's another candidate. You know how many candidates are on the ballot for Senate? You're being asked for 2. There's 7. Last year, there were 8 in the special election. And 5 of those candidates, before the election took place, the special election, petitioned the Senate Rules Committee about the violations on the ballot and the violations on the illegal awarding of the columns. And the Senate Rules Committee took no action. And I can tell you that they will petition on this, and I can send you copies of the petition. Describes exactly how the law was violated, that the judge ruled in our favor, and that nothing was done. Okay. I know that they will all serve. I served them. I walked through those 3 buildings and handed them their DVD and said, this is your documents, here's your hard copy. Now deal with it. Every one of those offices, I either got them in person, or I served their receptionist / clerk, or whoever their assistant was. We went in the Senate office buildings and delivered them personally. Okay. I spoke to all of them. We have answers on equal rights. We have answers on health care. We have answers on immigration. We have answers on environment. The only way you're going to know that is to hear from us. I'm constantly stifled in the news, so are the other independents that are running. So we held a conference of all the independent candidates at Monmouth University, excuse me. I grew up to it's on Monmouth College. Guggenheim Library, 28 candidates in attendance, only federals, 28 candidates in attendance. Did you see a peep in the newspaper? You realize that's 28 candidates. There's only 26 federal candidates total from the Democrats and the Republicans in this race. Because there's 21 counties, Senate, and 2 Senate candidates. Actually, I'm sorry, 12 districts, and 1 senator, so 13 times 2. It's 26. So we had 2 more candidates in that room than both parties had in this race. And by the time we were done, I'm going to tell you, we were all pretty much running in the same direction on almost every issue. Because we're not wearing handcuffs and we're not bound to make a decision based on what we're told to do. I'm not running to get floor privileges so that I can become a lobbyist when I'm done. I'm not running because I was told I have to run as a sacrificial lamb to hold the base vote for my Senate candidate. I'm running because I want to take back what belongs to my grandson. Okay? And each one of you should be engaged in your community the same way. And some of you are. In fact, the fact that you're here tonight already indicates that this matters to you. I would imagine every one of you, those 10 people that are not here tonight, that should be. And I can tell you that you probably, each one of them probably knows 10 more. The old rec girl model. You tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends. I'm not asking you to go tell them about federal crime. I'm asking you to tell them about bond reform. I'm going to ask you to tell them about school board council, municipal council. That's your dollars. Who's in your wallet was the title of this discussion. How come we're paying a 3rd attorney? You know, why? Because they rig the game so that you have to pay. That's like paying a cover charge to go into a casino and paying for the drinks. You know, and the scary thing is, and again, we joked about the solar panel issue, the house always wins. You like those rugs and resorts way back when that was the new one? That was the line Merv Griffin said before he bought it. You walk in, you look around, like it, you should, you paid for it. You know, and that's the other one from the old gambling joke, and I'm going to tell it to you too. When you go into those town meetings, just like going into a poker table with strangers, when you sit down at that table, you look across, you look to your left, you look to your right. And if you can't spot the sucker, close your wallet and get the hell out of the room because it's you.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. That was very informative, and I hope we all learned something. I know I certainly did. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief because we ran a little bit long today. First order, candidates night. We had agreed several months ago that anyone interested in seeing Jeff Bell, the Citizens for Freedom up in Toms River, will be hosting him, and we agreed rather than have him make 2 separate trips, you know, we'll go up there to hear what he has to say. I reached out to Cory Booker for him to come down to our meeting.
Good luck.
He doesn't even know.
Can I interject? You want to make Cory Booker show up? Invite the independents and Jeff Bell to the location where they're going to be talking and he's not there.
Interesting point. Okay,
Now he doesn't dare.
locally, Fred had alluded to this earlier. Our mayor and council, at the last township meeting, introduced what they're calling a littering ordinance, which started with the mailbag. It started by some residents bringing up an issue of the mailbag, which is the local advertising supplement, being tossed onto the driveways of homes. They claim that too many of them were washing into the streets and causing problems with the sewers. Okay, and at first glance, that seems pretty reasonable. Okay, but then they tacked on to that not only do they not want the mailbag delivered, but people going door to door for whether it's the Avon lady or someone putting a local menu on door hanger or a political campaign. The mayor himself said, well, they can still go door to door, but they just can't leave the material there on the step, and they can't leave a door hanger on the doorknob. If they knock on the door and someone answers, they can hand the information to the person, and that will be fine, but they can't leave anything under any circumstance. And then they toyed with the idea of, well, maybe if we put a junk mail cardboard box, people are free to put a box at their front door, and people could leave it in the receptacle, and that might be okay. Okay, well, when I first heard this, it stunk to high heaven of violations of the First Amendment.
Yes.
It took me all of about 5 minutes to find out that not only was it unconstitutional, but it's been adjudicated as such several times over. Most noticeably, the city of Pasadena, California, also tried to stop a local newspaper from doing the exact same thing, and then they furthered it into what they call the handbill ordinance, which was challenged not only by the newspaper company, but also by the ACLU of Los Angeles County. And I actually spoke to the lead counsel on that matter, and he said that they had to bring it all the way up to a federal court judge, Judge Keller, and he deemed it purely unconstitutional. He put a permanent injunction on the city's ordinance. Okay, and this was in 1999. Now, what happened? It still sat on the city's, rolls of laws. Okay, their city attorney or manager actually drafted a letter to the city council and said, being that this is deemed unconstitutional and been vacated by a federal judge, you might as well get it off the books. Okay, council revisited the idea. They took it off the books and started drafting almost the same ordinance, but with slightly different language, saying that you could still do these things, but with certain restrictions. Okay, David Fertig, the ACLU lawyer that I had the chance to speak to just last night, informed me exactly, I'm going to paraphrase, but he walked into council chambers, told the city council, look, it cost you over $100,000 in restitution to my law firm to reimburse me when we beat you the last time. I'm coming here and giving you this advice for free this time. Don't do it, you're going to lose again. They came to their senses and decided not to draft the ordinance, and that was the end of that. Okay, there was a second court case in California where there was an injunction against city ordinance that people could not leave flyers under cars' windshield wipers. Okay? The gentleman was informed by sheriff's deputies that he had to cease and desist, and he said, well, what if I don't? And they said, well, you'll be summoned, and you'll have to go to court and pay fines.
Okay.
He voluntarily stopped. But 2 days later, he filed his case, and the first appeals court came in. They actually sided with the town. He took it to the higher level, and believe it or not, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California unanimously ruled in his favor, and with much language in their decision, said that what the city was trying to do was unconstitutional. They had no right to do so. They were violating his rights and free speech, and there's no difference, essentially, between the commercial free speech exercise and that of political free speech at this point. So I had reached out to our town council, several of the members, asked them to talk some sense into our city attorney and mayor, and I'm hoping that it doesn't get to the point where the city has to get sued, Township of Stafford, because it will come to that. Because I, for one, am not going to take this lying down, allow my constitutional rights to be trampled upon. We have enough of that coming from the federal level. So,
You won't have to be sued. You won't have to do the suing. We're going to come out and make them sue us.
well, they'll give you a violation.
Yes, and then when we go to
Up,
court.
up to $2,000 in the language of,
We're,
get that, so if
We're
the
fine
Avon
with
lady comes to your house and leaves her book on your front doorstep, under this statute, she could be fined up to $2,000 and made into a criminal for leaving a friendly brochure at your front door.
Is that per occurrence?
Per occurrence.
per occurrence.
Per occurrence,
Yep.
up to $2,000 per occurrence.
Yep.
Now, if that doesn't stick to high heaven, I don't know what does.
It does.
Was that voted on twice and passed?
Voted
No,
on
it's
once.
not.
Second
Oh,
reading
the
is
second
October
reading,
7th.
That's right, thought.
Well, I guess I am coming to your 7th meeting.
So, anyone interested in free speech, I suggest we show up at the Stafford Township Council meeting and let them know that we're not about to stand by and have our constitutional rights trampled upon by this or any other governing body.
Can I interject something on that right now?
Absolutely, John.
This is the thing with government. It's not local government, it's not federal government, it's all government. Many, and you said it earlier, many of these people are good people, and they're there trying to do good things, okay? But when the citizenry is not involved, like this Tea Party is, then this nonsense goes on with both parties, both Democrat and Republican. And here's the thing, if I was there, I would have said, wait a minute, I'm an environmentalist too. I'm first, a First Amendment person, but secondly, I'm an environmentalist. Can't we come up with an idea, instead of a lawmaker, whether it's a mayor, whether it's a congressman, whether it's a president, saying this, we're going to make this new law. Can't they get the right minds in that room and say, wait a minute, there's another way to do this. We can educate people. We can say, look, the town has a problem with newspapers going in the storm drain. Let's ask every person in Stafford to spend $10 and put in an extra box next to their mailbox. That's an idea I just came up with.
One
There's
possible
many
solution.
ideas. But no, we allow our town people, whether they're good or bad, to make these decisions for us.
Yes, Fred?
When I've been working since I was 8 years old, and when I was 8, I had an advisor paper route. The advisor came in a plastic bag, used to roll them up, and then twice a year they gave away free Starbursts. And we came up with the idea that we would ask the 500 homes that I delivered this to, do you really want to receive the advisor, or should we recycle it for the Boy Scouts? And we went door to door to door to door, and I asked all of the people on my route, which is 500 people, my first political action. It ended up that 13 people wanted the advisor, which was great for me because I still got paid for delivering all of them. The advisor was paying me for the route, and rather than them throwing it away, they went directly to the Scouts to recycle it, which raised money. But the fun part was twice a year when they did the Starburst, I sold them a quarter apiece.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Well, let me say this. Predicated on what Eric has spoken to us about, we were very concerned about First Amendment rights. As a matter of fact, Asbury Park is coming down this week to address with the mayor and with the business administrator and hopefully some council members on this very subject. The problem has been is that after speaking to public works people, that plastic that is in those papers actually does creates a big problem for our storm drains. Not only have they found out that it has clogged the drains, has caused a backlog which has damaged people's homes, but as a matter of fact, it has continually been a sore subject for a lot of residents. Now, I think that paper should be delivered. In the front of that paper, they do have phone numbers on that, which the town is not saying you may not have that paper. What they're saying is that if you want that paper, ask for it. I know in my case, and I spoke to Eric about this, Eric likes that paper. Me, I don't. Just two different ideas. But what's happening is those papers, again, are creating a problem for the township. It's going into the bays, it's in plastic, it's wrapped. So it doesn't degrade. So that ends up in our storm drains, into our bays, into our lagoons, and so forth. We are concerned about it, and we are addressing it, only be
Well,
predicated
Steve,
on
I
what
think
areas.
we're in agreement that there could be a problem that needs to be addressed. The problem is, the town has no right to put negative rights upon the free speech of the paper or anyone else.
Eric,
It
and
works the other way around.
Eric,
They have every right to free speech until people want to opt out of that.
Eric, you're right, you're right. They do have entitled, they are entitled to that free speech. Nobody's trying to take that away from them. Least of all us. Okay?
Absolutely are.
We're all in favor of that. But we are concerned about the impact that it's having on our environment, on other residents that live in our town. So what we're trying to do is find a happy medium in between. So again, we have the Asbury Park, the attorney representing the paper, coming down to speak with us. We have rewritten the laws. We are, according to what I'm understanding, is that we do not have the, we're not going to eliminate it because you have every right to receive it, okay? It requires one phone call, that's all. What we are finding that people that have said, don't deliver this paper, are saying, they're not listening, they're still delivering the paper. So we're concerned, I want you to know that.
Robert?
The one thing that everyone's got to realize, these papers have advertising in it. They are charging the advertisers according to their circulation. So if you reduce these numbers of who they can, you're basically going to put this company out of business because they're selling that they deliver so many papers, period.
That's correct, you're absolutely 100% right.
First of all, Stafford Township, that's
Yes.
right.
There's 7 other towns that have discontinued it because of the same reasons we're having.
First of all, the Asbury Park Press, anybody that gets that pays for it.
Yeah.
You get the other one that comes around with the circulars,
Well,
okay?
they
You don't pay for that.
You know what? Yeah, you don't pay for it, but the homeowner should have the damn, get off his dead ass and go pick the stuff up. All right, go after them, don't go after the thing being delivered.
What I don't understand.
Hold on, Sinead, nobody
The
wants
plastic
to
paper
play
is
get mine in the
great,
newspaper.
but the other stuff. that
My
people
mailbag comes in the
stick on
newspaper.
Yeah, that's fine.
The political stuff,
Hey,
which
right.
actually I think is the end game. That's all paper. And what about the phone books that are dropped in everybody's lawn?
Exactly.
What are they gonna do about that? They dropped in
I guess
plastic
that would be
bag.
eliminated too, because
How
they're
many
saying that
traffic books
unless
are they
you
gonna give us?
specifically subscribe to, let's take it to the nth degree. Say one of your relatives sends you a UPS package for a birthday present that you don't know is coming. You didn't order that, but yet it's coming to your door. Is that illegal now?
No, it's not. Because what
That's
you-
Under your ordinance,
that's
it is.
considered
No, 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 they
government,
changed
that's
the
considered
word.
government mail.
They changed
No,
the
it is.
wording, Eric.
Private government.
They changed the wording. Okay, what they have said, if you deliver it and you put it on somebody's porch or inside the door or on a hanger or something like that, that's perfectly fine.
Not what the mayor said on
But
first.
No,
now
all-
it's changing,
Clearly.
but that's all changed now.
What about the?
All your courier
Now,
services,
same thing. As long as it's put in a secure place and it's not left in the street or on somebody's property where it can actually wash off, it's fine.
We've had storms where my garbage pail has gone down the street in the river. So if my garbage pail's new, I've never found it. So they could, same thing can happen to the phone
Was that
books.
yours? No.
Actually, I have it in my backyard.
Tom,
I'm a great proponent for free speech,
Me too.
but don't you have littering laws?
Exactly.
free speech is not litter. Okay?
But.
Here's what
paper-
happens.
paper that-
I go to someone's
paper that
door.
somebody throws on the ground.
Yeah,
is
that's
litter.
Here's my, I go to someone's door. I'm coming to the door for Frederick John Laverne for Congress, and I say, knock, knock, oh, you're not home here. I'm gonna leave it here, okay?
That's fine.
That's free speech. Okay, the homeowner comes home, what the hell is this crap?
Now-
That is litter, okay? There's a difference,
Now,
big difference.
Eric, I'm gonna say that that's all been changed. The wording, actually, Bob Kuzic and myself, predicated on what you said to us, addressed the First Amendment issues last, what day were we? Monday? Or Friday. We were in there, and we did address that, and we are very concerned about what you're saying. And as long as it's secured on somebody's property, it's okay. But for some people to just take flyers and throw it, litter,
What constitutes secure?
well, you put it on somebody's porch, you put it on a hanger, you take it, you've seen it on your mailboxes. They have those little plastic things, you can hang it on your mailbox, you can hang it on a doorstop, you can put it inside a door, you can put it on somebody's porch, you can secure it underneath a mat or something, as long as it's not washing into the sewer systems, is what they're concerned about. And apparently, this has been upheld in some of the other towns, because it's not only our town.
Just because
that
another
is-
town passed it doesn't mean it's been upheld,
Okay,
it just
well,
hasn't been challenged yet.
Look at, we're very concerned about it, we're very concerned about it. Bob Kuzic and myself spent a couple hours just the other day, predicated on what you said, speaking of that.
And they
Very
haven't
issue.
finalized it yet.
And they
They're
haven't
still waiting
finalized it. They're
for
working with it.
Gasti and,
Who's writing the
law
law?
firm.
That's good. Let's take, we got off subject.
Wait a minute.
Let's take the subject back to the
You're
president.
paying
and let
Gasky
him-
to review something that was ruled on when Wes Bell won the lawsuit against Stafford.
Yeah, I like that.
Now you're paying Gasky to review what Wes Bell already won for you?
It's already been adjudicated, that's
All
the
right.
whole point. you know.
That's a good subject, and that's great.
Believe me, Fred, we're concerned about it too.
We're all
I'm
concerned citizens, so
very
let's
concerned
listen
about
to
it.
our president and get back
In a
on track.
nutshell, I'm going to paraphrase one of my favorite quotes of all time. And the reason you would think, oh, who's this nut who's sticking up for the mailbag of all people? I'll tell you why. I believe in preserving the rights of the mailbag. Goes back to Reverend Newlander, Nazi Germany. Said first they came for the machinists. I was not a union member, so I said nothing. Then they came for the communists. I was not a member of the Communist Party, so I said nothing. Then they came for the Jews. I was not Jewish, so I said nothing. And they came for me. There was no one left to speak.
And you said
And
that.
that's
to-
why I do what I do.
Good points,
Onward.
good
Onward.
points, Eric.
Onward with the program. Thank you, President.
All right, that's my brief comments for this evening. It took longer than I was hoping, but I'd like to open it up to the floor briefly before we close out the meeting. Any new business that anyone wants to bring out?
I would like to start it with a little bit of satire. I hope you all can take a joke. What is the number one job of all governments that's ever been?
Take your money.
I would say protecting their citizenry from getting
Protect
killed,
themselves.
okay?
Protecting themselves and the citizens.
To protect those rights that are
To
guaranteed.
protect, to not only protect your rights, but I'm talking about all government and all time of mankind. The number one thing most people want government for is to protect their life,
That's right.
Right.
okay? But what would you call a government that does things that does not protect the life of the citizen? I would call it the Obama administration. I have many other things, but I'll give it to you people first.
Yeah, I'd like to address you folks. I think we've heard enough different things to get you upset. I'm gonna give you a couple of quick ones real fast. Who in this room was bothered by Hurricane Sandy? Who did it affect in this room? Only a few people? I'm surprised. It affected everybody, of course. All right? One of the things I found out in the past couple of years, working in different businesses and so forth, is that the insurance companies are protected from us by our government. All right? And the most blatant thing that I've found between all the stories you hear about insurance companies ripping this off and doing that and all the other things, what they do, under the law, if you have a loss in your house, okay, whatever it is, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, and if you have a contractor come in or a public adjuster come in or anybody else help you do an estimate, and if they write an estimate that is more than 5% above what technically it should be, okay, you can be charged with insurance fraud. Matter of fact, I saw a bulletin board coming down here, sitting insurance fraud, go to jail. Well, that's what they're talking about. People who have written estimates to get their things back, okay? If you write it at 5%, over 5% above, you can be prosecuted under state law, okay? Now, the reason nobody gets paid what they're supposed to is on the other end of the scale, the insurance company. When the insurance company comes in and comes through and says, you have $30,000 worth of damage, your house was $200,000, you know that's wrong, okay? There is no statute against the insurance company. They can come in and say, here's 25% of what you have lost. And they walk away, and then you have to fight them for it, all right? There's no statute, all right? That's what's happening to everybody, all right? The regulations, the laws, when you look at your insurance contract, which is what it is, there are so many outs for the insurance company, nobody can understand it, all right? I've gone to the insurance commissioner with some of these things, showed them what the insurance companies have done, and you know what they tell me? I can't do anything.
Right.
Literally, the insurance commissioner of the state of New Jersey. They said, I can't do anything. What does he say? Go sue the insurance company.
Well, they're not legislators. Until you put a legislator in there that's willing to put up and
To
change
change
the
it.
law and get these people to vote.
You're absolutely
The
right.
only way to change all this stuff is to actually run and be part of the system. Fix the system from within. You can't fix it from without. All right? Like Eric was saying, you put up a law, you spend all this money, you knock it down in court, the court says, yeah, you're absolutely right. And 2 weeks later or 2 months later, they come back and write another law.
Right.
And you've got to start all over again.
You're right.
And they do it to you all the time.
Yep.
That's why whatever we're doing here very rarely works for any period of time. And I'll tell you how I know this. You people don't really know me. Remember the Conservative Party in New Jersey? Okay, I was the chairman. I was one of the founders of the New Jersey Conservative Party. We did this for 20 years. We've been in court with Fred and with us, and
Since 1999.
Eugene. Before that, 1995.
Well, 95, I'm sorry.
Okay? Before we went to court in the state of New Jersey, you couldn't even register to vote as anything but a Democrat, Republican, or an independent. You couldn't register as a conservative. You couldn't register as a green. You couldn't be a libertarian. They gave you that choice. They didn't want to hear from you. We had to go to court to win before the Supreme Court the right of the people of New Jersey just to put their own name on the ballot as far as who they are and who they're going to vote for. All right? There's more than 50% people in the state of New Jersey that are neither Democrat nor Republican. You can make a difference, but it's not enough to vote anymore. We were taught that. The people in Afghanistan came out with more than we come out with when we come out of the voting booth. They came out with at least a blue finger. We don't even get that. We sort of get the middle finger. If you don't change who's going on the ballot and who's going to be there, and it takes good people. You don't have to be rocket scientists. You don't have to be physicists. These people we have in Congress, 90% of them know less than you do right here. I can guarantee you. You talk to these people. The only reason they know something is because they're sitting there in there and they gave him the bill. Here's the bill number. Well, now he knows the bill number.
You're absolutely right. Insurance companies are out of control.
They're absolutely out of control.
Yep.
Who runs the insurance companies?
Tom MacArthur?
Politician.
At least I was to say it.
What a surprise. All right?
Yeah.
One of our
We're only
finest.
gonna give you 30 cents on the dollar. Their website brags that they negotiate 39 cents on the dollar to their clients, the insurance company. Their website, York Services. He's not there anymore. They argue that, oh, these cases all happened after he left. No, they got to the federal appellate court after he left. Some of these losses took place before he started. They bought these out. They were brought in as a hired gun, as a third-party adjuster, to negotiate with you till you're in such financial distress you've got to take what they'll offer you. Now, why haven't you seen him here in Sandy? Because interestingly enough, Jersey does have fairly good consumer protection laws. They don't have a license in New Jersey. They're here, but they don't take policies in Jersey. They go where they can go kill people off with leaving them in their house. $25,000 for a $200,000 house. You don't like it? Well, we'll delay you in court for another 2 years till you lose the property.
I got a letter today from the condominium burned up in North Jersey last Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact. Okay, 18 units burned or destroyed. Okay?
Ewing.
I think it was Ewing, okay? One of the fellows there lived in one of the units. I was trying to help him. He called me again last night. He says he's totally at his wit's end. All right, he's been out of the house for a year, basically. All right, they sent him a check for $11,500.
And if he cashes it, he'd have to go back in court to try to get something.
To try to get it open.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't raise my hand when you first asked your question, and I should have. I benefited from the hurricane, okay? But you gotta be careful when you say that. That's why I didn't say it, but I didn't have to know who I'm dealing with when I say that. But that's why, after the hurricane, I went to the Republican Party, I went to the Tea Party, I went any place I could, and I said the only way you can really benefit yourself with insurance companies is to get a public adjuster, because you don't know what's in that insurance policy.
Right, all right, the problem
I'll
with
say
that.
it again, I say it every time I get a chance. I say to a group of people, when it comes to insurance, get a public adjuster.
Yep,
All right.
yep, that helps.
The one problem with that, and I'm very familiar with it, all right? A public
Educate.
adjuster, no, a public adjuster has no legal standing against the insurance company.
Right. But they can, a good one can at least
They can give you the numbers,
give you the right
at
thing.
least give you the numbers. Most people have no idea how much they really lost.
Right.
All right? Unfortunately, in New Jersey, a public adjuster or a public adjusting company has the same power as you do if you went to yourself.
Right.
All right? The insurance company, and they're doing it constantly. You come in, the insurance company comes in, they use the same software that the insurance companies use. All right? So you figure, gee, here it is, here's the numbers, we can agree and all that. No, they just walk away and ignore it. All right? The software was developed by the insurance companies.
Right.
Okay? The other point being, now, every cost that I've seen in the last 50 years of my life, it's always gone up, except for computers and electronics. There's always something going on there. All right? The numbers that they use in these programs, the numbers on all the equipment, on a 2x4, on a piece of sheetrock, has dropped in the past 3 years. You tell me where any of that has dropped in New Jersey in the past 3 years.
Because they were telling me it was more
It's up
than
about 10 to 20%.
Easily.
to replace.
All right?
10 to 20%.
That's what's going on. Now, the big thing, again, we're talking all these different people and the Democrats and Republicans, is the money. If you're not actually in office, you get virtually nothing. If you're a Democrat or Republican, you can have money funneled to you if you're a good Democrat or good Republican, quote unquote. All right? You have a municipal political party committee. You have a county political party committee. And this is for Democrats and Republicans, so you have two of each. You have a state political party committee. You have a legislative leadership committee. All right? These are all committees that you cannot have as an independent candidate. Okay? They are also limited, for example, candidates committee. An individual, you give $2,600 a person. All right? Legislative Leadership Commission, they give them $25,000 a person. And on and on and on. This is why the hold they have on us is so tight. You can't crack it unless you're in there. Now, we're doing it,
Len joined our organization. Len was the head of the Conservative Party.
hand to mouth, literally.
We have support from as far right as the Conservative Party, to as far left as, no joke, New Jersey Weed Man. He's not one of us, but he's helping us. Okay? We take our bite out of the middle. We've gone around the state and selected, and when I say this, you can check me on it, the best and brightest for each location and for each case. So, Alan Cannon, our District 12 candidate, he's a sitting deputy Democrat mayor in Hopewell Township. Okay, 25 years in the service, honorable, decorated veteran from overseas. Okay, Alan Cannon is educated. Alan Cannon is qualified. He's already served his country. He's already served his community. He's running in a race against Bonnie Watson-Coleman, who didn't see fit to show up yesterday in the assembly over the school's vote of the Vote for Israel. so I guess it wasn't important enough for her to come. She's 16 years in the assembly, and the only thing that I can find on her when I search on the first page is that she was kicked off the review for ethics on Chris Christie. Okay. Alan is a qualified individual. He won't talk about it, I'm gonna tell you about it. The Wounded Warrior Project is a charity. The Wounded Warrior Program is a government program through the service for those that are wounded and their families. The gentleman who wrote that is Alan Cannon. People don't know that. He doesn't tell people that. I'll tell you that. He won't tell them. He's too humble. This guy is the perfect match for a district in Mercer, where he's the head of the Camden High School Alumni Association and can deal with the population in Mercer from the least well-off to the most well-off in Hopewell, Middlesex, Somerset, and Union County he'll be representing. He's somebody who can talk to everybody. Our Senate candidate is a constitutional expert. Our candidate against Mr. Lobiando and Mr. Hughes teaches ethics in 3 colleges. I think he probably qualifies. Okay, we've gone around, Don, who's here tonight, business person, scoutmaster involved in Boy Scouting for 50 years. Our solution to the Ferguson, Missouri issue for Camden, we're already instituting through 4 churches down there efforts to put forth 2 police explorer posts and 2 fire explorer posts so they can grow their own. Because the county took their police out of the city of Camden. I mean, took the city of Camden police out, put their county officers in. Those guys want to go home at the end of their shift too, and they have no knowledge of the people in that district. And there are heavy-duty tension going on down there. There's also some serious bias issues, no question. But at the same time, those are 2 groups of people that don't know each other. You've got to grow those people from within. We've gone to each of the districts. Tracy Caprioni, who we selected for as the campaign, in our campaign for Freeholder, because there's 1 seat. If I was going to pick 1 person in this county that I know will go in and go through those books with a fine-tooth comb, he's not going to see any waste. He's not going to see any violation of civil rights. That's who he is. The guy's an Eagle Scout. I've known him for 40 years. No, Tracy Caprioni. Mr. Gilmore, I'm going to take him golfing with my 9-iron, and I want you to know I don't play golf. We've gone other states too. We're working to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Did you know that the time clock on the Equal Rights Amendment is not expired? It doesn't apply. It appears in the before the colon. It's not part of the language of the bill. There's 5 states that rescinded the Equal Rights Amendment, and 1 governor who vetoed a ratification. Well, since the governor's in the executive branch in his state, he has no role in the ratification process. You can't rescind a ratification vote. That's why we had to have the 21st Amendment, my favorite amendment, repealing the Volstead Act. You couldn't just say, okay, no more prohibition. We have to have a new amendment and then pass and ratify it. Okay? The Equal Rights Amendment needs 3 states to ratify. We're working with 3 states that have initiative and referendum to help them put it on their ballot as a question. Now the Equal Rights Amendment's a 2-edged sword. If everything's that equal, it's equal in both ways. But while Tom and Amy spoke the other day about demanding equal pay for women, if we make it a constitutional amendment, which we've already tried to do, I think that pretty well settles the issue anywhere in the land. None of them even know that you can do this. And she has a law degree. And what kills me is the person that she looks up to most is Alice Paul. I knew Alice Paul. You know Alice Paul. Alice Paul knew that this was still an open question, but she took no action on it. She raised a lot of funds and a lot of awareness for women in this state. She is a hero. Okay, but she's not a hero like Edith Savage Jennings, who we are working with right now on civil rights. Edith Savage Jennings, who helped get Nelson Mandela free by forcing Tom King to get all the governors to pressure Washington to put the sanctions on South Africa. Edith Savage Jennings is endorsing our candidate in District 10, Gwen Franklin, and Alan Cannon in District 12, our Senate candidate, myself, Don, because what we're doing for the different communities. Everybody right now, they're having these little pillow fights. They talk about a little issue, but they don't really answer the question. It's like the song with Charles Durning in the movie, or in the stage show. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. They love to do a little sidestep, never really talk about the issue.
That's Obama.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Every day.
You
I don't
said,
think he's missed a day.
His answer
Mr.
to what do we
Dado
do about
Goffin.
the economy is, how about them Mets?
Mr. Tatum got them.
I'm gonna stop campaigning, so you guys gotta get your stuff done, I gotta stop being a candidate, and start trying to help. I'm gonna leave my notepad up here, if you guys would like to hear more about what we're trying to do, or would you like to give us input on what maybe something we've forgotten, which is not impossible. It never occurred to me to talk about immigration, and I got an immigrant in the family. But the reason it didn't is because I just thought we'd follow the laws on the books, which apparently we don't do. So we brought, well, here's what we did. We went out, I'm gonna get off the stage in 2 seconds. We went out, the top expert in immigration in the country, she lectures at American University, Brown University, Columbia University, is Shireen Chen. She happens to live here in New Jersey, in Cherry Hill. I've known her since she was a 16-year-old student. She has her MD, her PhD, and her JD, okay? And she's the child of immigrants. I promise you, no one in this nation knows immigration law better than Shireen Chen. She's helping us. She has helped us on immigration issues in the past. She's not running with us.
Legal or illegal?
Both, and I'll tell you, we have a solution, which I'm not gonna do to you tonight, it's too late. I'm gonna tell you, there's a solution to illegal immigration that I think I can even convince you is okay. What if I said to you, I'll give you a little idea, and again, we're still fleshing this out, but I talked to this about the people, we have committees on each of these things, actual committees doing work, not, oh, we have a veterans committee, here's 35 guys that voted Republican, and we can put their name down, and they will say it's okay. You know, like your mayor is apparently on the veterans committee, Republican. Another story. What if we took the pathway that exists, and you came here illegally, and we punished you by saying, you can stay, you follow the pathway, 10 more years. You serve 10 years, you pay in.
No.
Serve 10 years in prison? Or?
No, serve 10 years. No, you serve
Sounds like a free ride.
10 years. Pay into the system.
You said you pay in.
Pay in, oh yeah, no.
Where are they gonna get the money to pay?
Yeah,
You think they're not working?
I mean,
Oh, they're working,
Of
but you're
course
also
they're-
collecting.
What's that,
Yes.
$10 an hour
No,
minimum wage?
I will tell you this, and I know that that's the impression.
impression.
It is far less prevalent than you think. And I say that because we've seen the real numbers. It is far less prevalent than they're doing work. There are way more people collecting welfare and working than working here. I had a person in our district that lives in a town not far from here, who's working here, was arrested at her job collecting welfare in this state, Pennsylvania, and Florida, under 2 identities each, and arrested at her job. She was a citizen.
Jail.
Welfare, all right, yes, and if you're caught, this is what I'm trying to say, if we give them a pathway, and if you stray from that pathway, bye.
Got a better solution,
No.
just eliminating welfare. Case
No,
closed,
because
done.
situations where people gonna show up and give it then, they don't.
Can I tell you? I live in Delanco, the town next to it is Riverside. There is a significant illegal Riverside, it's on the west side of the state. Significant, less than legal population in that community. Significant.
Eric, you have more on yours?
Actually, we gotta wrap this up, it went way too long tonight, I apologize to
If you'd like
anyone
to- I'd like
who,
your
we
input.
kinda droned
I
on
would
and
very much
on.
like your input, and if you have strong feelings on this, I'd like you on the committee.
I'd like to thank Fred for coming in. Also, if you notice in the back, is our friend Robert Goldberg, First Amendment TV. Came all the way down from the East Jersey Tea Party to film this event for us. Please go on his website, First Amendment TV. Check out some of the other things he's done. He's bringing a lot of good issues out.
Well,
A lot of information.
I have cards for you. The website I'm having redone, so don't go there because it's a mess. But the videos are posted on YouTube, and a lot of other things that I've covered were a Common Core event just as of last Friday up in Millburn. Other events that Steve Lonigan's now involved with Fix the Dollar, and some other things. So you go to the YouTube channel, First Amendment TV on YouTube, and there's a bunch of videos there, so you'll be able to see everything.
There's a
Thank you.
black
Thank you, everyone, for coming in.